I was recently reading an interview with Jeff Bezos, who's the founder of Amazon. He was talking about how he's built a culture within Amazon of creativity and inventiveness. One thing he said in that interview that really stood out is he said, a question he always asks potential new employees at Amazon is this: tell me about something you have invented. Now, what was interesting about that is he said, when someone doesn't know how to answer that question, that's the giveaway that they've not got the right fit for Amazon. And he actually went on to say that the goal for Amazon is to create the world's biggest laboratory. In other words, it's all about inventiveness and creativity. The interesting thing is, Jeff Bezos is not alone. In fact, you look at some of the research from people like Google and Apple and Facebook, all of these companies, when you speak to those who are doing the hiring for these companies, and I've had conversations with many of them over the years, they're not particularly interested in the college or the university you went to. They're not that interested in the results you got. What they want to know is, how do you think? Do you have a creative or inventive bent? That is what is increasingly important in that technology world. And can I suggest that's a sign of what is to come? Daniel Pink, in his book, A Whole New Mind, picks up on this theme, and he said the reality is, in the past, the world belonged to the left brain logical linear thinkers, but the keys to the kingdom are changing hands. The future, he said, will belong to the right brain creatives. And yet the challenge is creativity, originality is under assault. In fact, if you look at the research from the Torrance test, for instance, a test that has been run every year for decades measuring creativity, 98% of 3-year-olds register on this scale as creative geniuses. And yet by the time those same students reach the age of 25, only 3% are still in that category. So what happens? I mean, it's been fashionable in recent years to pin the blame on education, to say that schools kill creativity. And there's probably something to be said for that. We need to be mindful of what do we do in our systems of education that can sometimes dim that flame of creativity and originality in students. But it's more than that. We've got to be mindful, if the world is going to belong to right brain thinkers, the creatives, those who can originate in the years to come, what are the things that can stand in the way of that happening? And I want to suggest there are 3, certainly within school settings, we've got to be very mindful of. The first is a systemic low regard for creativity and originality. There is a hierarchy of subjects in schools, and typically we esteem and value things like mathematics and science and engineering and the subjects that are the harder left brain subjects. We've got to be mindful that we often have this unconscious bias toward valuing those subjects and relegating all the creative arts to, they're nice to do, but they're not essential. And yet in many cases, the things that students will learn in the creative arts subjects will be the very skills and mindsets that will set them up to succeed in the world of tomorrow. The second reason why creativity and originality often don't come naturally is just the level of distractedness in students. The fact that they've got smartphones and social media around them at all times. And yet you look at the research and it is very compelling. The importance of solitude, silence, being unplugged in being creative is key. I heard a great insight years ago from a mentor of mine. Great ideas rarely interrupt us. We've got to give space, we've got to give time, we've got to unplug enough to be creative. Great insight from a guy who's a professor at Yale University, Richard Foster, says this. He says, if you want to be really truly creative, don't just do something, stand there. In other words, the importance of just stopping long enough to be creative. And yet we've got a generation of students who are increasingly distracted, and it's not just by technology, it's how busy their lives are. We've got to be mindful as schools of how we contribute to this and cram up the schedules of students to the point where they can't actually genuinely be creative or original. And the third thing we've got to be mindful of is a relegation of imagination. Baroness Mary Warnock puts it well when she says the cultivation of imagination ought to be the chief aim of education. Now that's interesting because of course that stands at odds with centuries of the way we've approached learning. For so many years we've valued logic and reason right back from the days of Plato and Aristotle, but we've often seen imagination as something that should be sidelined or at least viewed with suspicion. And yet some of the best, most creative ideas, the stuff that is most original, often comes from the realm of imagination. A play theorist by the name of Brian Sutton Smith puts it well when he said, to be able to imagine is to be able to be free of conventional appearances. In other words, being able to think outside the box is always a function of being able to imagine, to conceive of thoughts we haven't had before. You know, if the world is going to belong to the right brain creatives in the years ahead, and I believe it will, as we see artificial intelligence increasingly take a lot of those left brain leaning roles, or sort of logical, analytical skills, we're seeing computers do that work. And so what is going to be required in the years ahead is human beings who can do what only humans do, which is create and be originators of content. Are we ensuring that our systems of education, our paradigms, our philosophies of learning create space for that originality, that creativity to bubble up? Because those will be the skills that will be most necessary in the years ahead.